The Legacy of the Etruscan. The Path of Aurelius. Chapter 1. The Shadow at the Gate. It was 117 AD. The long and glorious reign of Emperor Trajan was in its last moments. The Roman Empire embraced a vast geography, stretching from the Danube to the Euphrates, from the hot deserts of North Africa to the misty islands of Yet behind this magnificent facade, the poisonous breath of political intrigue and the relentless pressure of class division were always concealed. Our story begins far from the heart of Rome, in Etruria, modern-day Tuscany, one of the most culturally rich and ancient regions of the empire. Aurelius Rufus was only 25 years old. The olive groves and a small vineyard he inherited from his father did not make him rich, but they were enough to sustain a modest life. Although his family had Etruscan roots, Aurelius held great respect for the laws, gods, and especially the army of Rome. That day, the sky hung low and leaden over the oaken cypress trees of it. Aurelius, along with his quiet and strong friend of 12 years, Lucius, stopped by an old, abandoned cemetery area on their way back from the local market. This was a place where carved rock tombs belonging to Etruscan nobles lay. Rumors of it being cursed circulated among the people. "Look at the path we took, Aurelius," Lucius said, pointing west with his thick finger. "I know. It's the shortest way to the land your father wanted. But still, I don't feel right about being here." Aurelius laughed. "There are darker, older places all over Rome, Lucius. This is just a forgotten hill. Besides, you know, my father's will, he always wanted us to unite the lands. This cemetery plot is the last piece between our olive groves and the bishop's property. We must acquire it." Lucius nodded, but his eyes were uneasy. "Your father, the late Gaius Rufus, was a wise man, but he was also one of the last men loyal to the Etruscan customs. This graveyard, I think we shouldn't disturb the peace of those buried here." Suddenly, a shrill sound was heard amidst the wind's howl. The two young men stopped immediately. The sound was not a scream. It was more like the painful moan of an animal. Aurelius drew his sword, whispering, "Someone is there, maybe a runaway or a hunter." They advanced toward the cemetery grounds. The air had grown colder. Near the ruins of an ancient temple hidden among the rocks, they saw a silhouette lying on the ground. It was a man. His dirty and torn clothes suggested he was neither a noble nor a merchant. Beside the man lay a shiny, black obsidian box, etched with strange, geometric shapes. The man was covered in blood, and his breathing was labored. When Aurelius knelt down, the man's eyes barely opened. His gaze was filled with fear, pain, and a strange wisdom. "What happened to you?" Aurelius asked. Kneeling, the man's trembling hand reached for the box. On his finger was a simple, silver ring. The man looked into Aurelius's eyes and spoke in a choked whisper. "Guard the box. Do not deliver it to the eagle. ... They are coming. They, the ancient ones. ... Before he could utter the last word, the man's body convulsed, and he drew his last breath. Lucius gasped. "He's dead. Gods help us." Who was he? Aurelius was stunned by the unexpected death and the man's mysterious words. He picked up the box. Its cold, smooth surface felt like it was burning his hand. The box was light, but he sensed something moving inside. "This box," Aurelius said, his voice low and tense. "The man told us not to give it to an eagle. The symbol of Rome. This is a sign of danger." It's as if he's talking about a Roman legion or an imperial official. Lucius looked around anxiously. "Leave the box." "Let's leave it here. If this man was a criminal, this box is his crime. You are a respected citizen of Rome. Don't get yourself into trouble." Aurelius looked at his friend. He felt that day marked the end of his simple farmer's life. His father's legacy, the olive groves, and the desire for a peaceful life. All were crushed under the weight of this obsidian box. The man's last words sounded more like a prophecy than a final will. "No," Aurelius said with determination. "I cannot ignore the words of a man on his deathbed, especially if he's talking about something that could endanger Rome. This box, ... It carries a secret, and I must find out what that secret is. He carefully tucked the obsidian box under his cloak. Let's leave here immediately. We must move the body somewhere. No one will find it. Then, we will examine this box. Perhaps these markings on it will give us a clue. The two young men hid the body among the nearby dense bushes. As Aurelius returned home that evening, he knew that the legacy of Etruria and the future of Rome had unexpectedly fallen onto his shoulders. Chapter 2. Obsidian and the Ring. Upon arriving home, Aurelius immediately retreated to his small, dimly lit study. Lucius cautiously waited outside the door. He placed the obsidian box on the table and brought the olive oil lamp closer. The box was truly remarkable in its craftsmanship. No hinges or locking mechanism were visible anywhere. It looked as if it had been carved from a single piece of obsidian. The strange, geometric shapes on its surface resembled no known pattern of a Roman legion or Etruscan art. They were the signs of an ancient, forgotten language. As Aurelius turned the box, he remembered the silver ring he had taken from the dead man's finger. He placed the ring on the table. It was a simple ring, but there was a very fine relief on its edges. This relief was part of the same patterns on the obsidian box. Aurelius, to try an experiment, attempted to align the ring with the patterns on the box's surface. On his first attempt, nothing happened. On the second, he caught the moment the ring aligned perfectly with one of the patterns. At that moment, a slight click came from the box, and the top lid slowly slid sideways, moved by an invisible mechanism. Inside, there was only one item, an old parchment scroll tightly rolled. Aurelius, with trembling hands, took out the scroll. The parchment seemed centuries old. Its color was yellowed, its edges worn. He slowly unrolled the scroll. The writing was in Latin, but the language and style were not those of an ordinary letter in 117 AD. The sentences carried a philosophical and mysterious air. Aurelius brought the lantern closer and began to read. I, Servius Tullius Miletus, the scholar of centuries past. This is our legacy. When the shadow of the eagle falls, these words must be read. This box is the key to the Gate of Veritas. The gate is found where the blood of Rome, the Etruscans, and the tyrants are buried. Go there. It can only be opened through blood and mind. The knowledge within reveals Rome's true foundation and the cost at which the empire was built. But beware, this knowledge can shatter the power of the eagle. Therefore, they are also searching for it. They, the guardians of oblivion. Protect this knowledge, young heir. Otherwise, what will swallow Rome will be not only the eagle's own greed, but also the claw of oblivion. Aurelius was astonished by what he read. The Gate of Veritas, the blood of Rome. The guardians of oblivion. These phrases seemed like something out of a legend or a madman's delusion, but the concrete box in his hand, and the dead man's last breath, shouted that it was real. Lucius slipped into the room. What did you find, Aurelius? A fortune. Aurelius carefully concealed the parchment. No, Lucius, not a fortune, but I found a burden, he said. He summarized the contents of the letter, emphasizing the part that said, the gate is found where the blood of Rome, the Etruscans, and the tyrants are buried. Lucius frowned. The blood of Rome. ... What does that mean? Wasn't he talking about the first kings of Rome? The Etruscans ... the tyrants? This is a reference to the Roman foundation myth. The tyrants, meaning the Etruscan monarchy, who were expelled after the first kings. ... double quotes. Yes, Aurelius said excitedly, and most importantly, where the Etruscans are buried. In Etruria, there was only one place where the tombs of the Etruscan nobles were located, a place once believed to be the burial site of kings, considered sacred, but declared cursed with the arrival of Roma's massive necropolis. Its name, the Shadow of Volterra. The Shadow of Volterra, Lucius exclaimed, his voice filled with dread. It's cursed. Only the sounds of ghosts and jackals are heard there. We cannot go there. We have to go, Aurelius replied. the fire of a seeker, not a farmer, burning in his eyes. This letter carries knowledge that must not be delivered to the eagle. This is a secret of the Empire, and if this secret is powerful enough to shake the foundations of Rome, we cannot let the eagle seize it. Aurelius placed the parchment back into the obsidian box and carefully hid the box in a leather pouch. We leave tomorrow morning. Prepare our weapons, take food with us, and tell no one anything. This will be a secret known only to the two of us. Neither Rome nor the local officials should learn this secret. That night, Aurelius could not sleep. On one hand, the dead man's warning, "They are coming," and on the other, the phrase "Guardians of Oblivion" from the letter revolved in his mind. The shadows of not only legionaries, but also secret societies. Ancient religions and forgotten gods roamed all over Rome. Aurelius had now entered a game he didn't know, a game that would change his life. Chapter 3. The Shadow of Volterra and the First Clue the next morning. As the first rays of the sun gilded the hills of Aurelius and Lucius mounted their horses and set off north towards Volterra. Lucius's worry was evident on his face, but Aurelius's determination gave him confidence. After a dangerous and exhausting journey that lasted 2 days, they reached the abandoned necropolis, known as the Shadow of Volterra. This was truly an ominous place, filled with hundreds of tumulus tombs and underground galleries. The reason Rome declared this area cursed was that those buried here were Etruscan kings and nobles who had fought against Rome. "This place," Lucius whispered, "it's as if the earth itself breathes the hatred of Rome." Aurelius took out the obsidian box. The letter says, "The gate is where blood, Etruscans, and tyrants are buried." This place best fits that description. After days of searching, they reached the spot they were looking for. Deep within the tombs, in a narrow passage at the base of a cliff. This was not an ordinary burial chamber. It was sealed off by a thin Roman marble wall. Roman work, Aurelius noted. They wanted to hide something. Breaking down the wall took hours. Finally, when the wall collapsed, the sight before them took their breath away. This was not a burial chamber, but a large, circular, underground hall. In the center of the hall stood a marble stele, made with Etruscan art, but blended with Roman aesthetics. The stele showed 3 different scenes. A sacrifice ceremony of an Etruscan priest, the founding myth of Rome, and at the bottom, a chained, helpless-looking figure. This sculpture must have been the chamber itself, but the letter spoke of a gate. Aurelius remembered the words in the letter. It can only be opened through blood and mind. Blood ... mind ... he muttered. Lucius noticed an inscription in the Etruscan alphabet at the base of the sculpture. "Aurelius, look here." This must be a riddle. The inscription read, "When the blood of the eagle meets the mind of the serpent, the ancestors return." The eagle, Rome. The serpent, Etruscan wisdom and mystery. ... dull. Quotes Aurelius, contemplated, blood ... A ritual shedding of blood. No! It can't be. Suddenly, something struck him. The silver ring on the dead man's finger and the obsidian box. The man's blood had dropped onto the box. Perhaps blood was not a metaphor. Aurelius cut his hand and smeared his blood onto the pattern on the box. Then, taking the parchment and the ring, he placed them into an empty recess on the marble stele. At that moment, the ground shook. The stele split in 2, and inside, a colossal bronze gate appeared, emitting a faint orange glow. The gate opened with a deep, muffled sound. The Gate of Veritas had opened. From the dark corridor behind the gate, a smell of burnt things, mold, and ancient spices wafted out. Aurelius and Lucius looked at each other. There was no turning back. Whatever we find inside, we must learn the truth, Aurelius sighed. They stepped through the gate. The corridor led them into a narrow, complex labyrinth that spiraled them deeper into the earth. After hours of exhausting walking, the labyrinth opened into a large, underground library. The walls were lined from floor to ceiling with shelves full of parchment scrolls, clay tablets, and cryptic inscriptions. In the center of the library, On a single marble pedestal stood a large iron chest. Engravings of Rome's first kings were on the chest. This was the gathering place of millennia of knowledge, Rome's greatest secret. Aurelius approached the chest. He traced the lid with his fingertips. The chest was not locked. The gate was open. The library's secret and the trail of the enemy. The first discovery, the contents of the chest. Aurelius fully opened the lid of the chest. The marble pedestal and the bronze chest inside were silent and cold, like a waiting room of thousands of years. His eyes were searching neither for gold nor jewels. What he was looking for was the mysterious knowledge that had cost Lucius his life. He focused on the three objects inside the chest. A bronze tablet, engraved with complex writing and map-like lines. A broken sword hilt. It looked like the last relic of an ancient warrior. It bore a sculpted lion's head. A thick parchment scroll. It looked much newer than the others, and was clearly a diary. Aurelius first took the parchment scroll and unrolled it. The parchment was a long diary written by a historian or priest. The writing was in Latin, but dated back to the transition period from Republic to Empire in the 1st century BC. This was precisely the period when Rome most rewrote its own history, most distorted its myths. Rome's true foundation. The Diary of the Lie. The content of the diary filled Aurelius's heart with an icy shock. What he read shattered everything a farmer or an ordinary Roman citizen believed. The truth was covered with a lie. The expulsion of the Tarquin's Etruscan kings was not merely a liberation from tyranny. It was a struggle between an ancient, timeless society of wisdom, the Serpent Society, and the imperial ambition, the Eagle Society. The Tarquins were not merely kings, but also the guardians of this Serpent Society. They protected this underground library and the knowledge within. The diary stated that the expulsion of the Etruscans was actually a war for knowledge. The Serpent Society, Etruscan Wisdom, believed in the cycle of nature and the correct use of a mysterious power. The Eagle Society, Rome's founding elite, however, aimed to use this power for a limitless conquest, an absolute rule. The parchment focused on one specific issue. This underground library contained information about a mysterious energy source shared by the Etruscans and the first Romans. The first leaders of the Eagle, the founders of the empire, tried to seize this energy, which we called Aetherium Potentia. They did not succeed, but they covered up the existence of the library. Rome is founded on power and conquest, but its base is a knowledge sought to be seized. This power had the potential not only to rule Rome, but also to conquer the worlds beyond the empire. Lucius whispered behind Aurelius. This contradicts Roman history itself. If T sees through, the empire is built on a lie. If the senators learn this truth, all hell would break loose. Aurelius nodded. His heart was pounding. He had always been proud to be a farmer of Rome. Now, this pride was confronting the dark truth hidden beneath the empire's glorious mask. Servius Miletus's warning and the shadow eyes. The author of the diary was Servius Tullius, who had hidden these scrolls here a century ago. The last pages of the diary were a warning and a testament. The Eagle Society, the Imperial Elite, never stopped searching for the knowledge. For centuries, they have tracked the heirs through their secret service, the Shadow Eyes Oculi Umbrae. This society has infiltrated the structure of the empire so deeply that even the emperors themselves may be their puppets. This sentence froze Aurelius. He remembered the whisper of the dead man in Etruria years ago. They are coming. If you are reading this, your duty is to protect the knowledge. The Shadow Eyes killed the man who came before you, and now they will look for you. They are the most capable and ruthless agents of the Empire. They walk in the shadows, and will do anything in the name of the Eagle. Do not hand this knowledge over to them, young heir. As soon as Aurelius finished reading the diary, he felt a profound dread. From the far corners of the library hall, a low, muffled hum was heard, as if the ground itself was being swallowed. This was not the sound of the earth, but the sound of metal scraping against metal, coming from a nearby passage. "Someone is coming," Lucius shouted, his voice panicked. "The Shadow Eyes! Clash in the labyrinth." Aurelius moved immediately. He quickly placed the scroll back into the obsidian box and closed the lid of the chest. "We don't have time to look at the other items in the chest. We must get out of here immediately." He quickly grabbed the bronze tablet from the chest and hid it in his inner pocket. This tablet must be the map showing the location of the Aetherium. As they ran toward the gate, 3 figures in iron armor, with their faces covered, appeared at the mouth of the corridor. Their uniforms resembled those of the Roman Praetorian Guards, but instead of the Imperial Eagle, they bore the emblem of an intertwined, terrifying shadow eye. "Stop, heir and friend. In the name of the Eagle Society, surrender everything you have found." One of the figures roared. His voice was muffled and metallic behind the helmet. Aurelius did not hesitate. He drew his sword. "I will protect the Etruscan legacy. The lies of Rome will be revealed." The battle began in the narrow corridor. The training of the Shadow Eyes was flawless. They were much faster, quieter, and made deadlier strikes than simple legionaries. They were like living war machines, not men. Lucius was a strong man and fought bravely, but his shield was shattered by a sudden strike from a Shadow Eye. In a short time, Lucius's sword was knocked down, and a Shadow Eye threatened his throat with the tip of his sword. "Surrender the box, or your friend dies." Aurelius was desperate. The sword in his hand trembled. His friend was in danger. He hesitated for a moment and threw the obsidian box to the ground. Just then, Lucius, with an expression blending pain and determination on his face, used his last effort to push the Shadow Eye holding him. As another Shadow Eye lunged toward Aurelius, Lucius screamed, "Run, Aurelius! Don't give it to the eagle!" The only thing Rome needs is the truth. As Lucius locked himself with the other Shadow Eye, the sword of the third Shadow Eye flashed in the darkness. A scream, and silence. Aurelius grabbed the box and plunged into a dark corner of the labyrinth. Behind him, Lucius's lifeless body lay, the last sacrifice to Rome's darkest secret. The secret network, and the journey to Rome the escape, and the secret of the map Aurelius managed to escape the dark labyrinths of Volterra. Filled with tears, rage, and grief, he now had a purpose: revenge and protecting the truth. Lucius's sacrifice had shown him how serious and fatal this mission was. He quickly left the cemetery grounds, found his horse, and set his course for only one place: Rome. He couldn't hide anywhere else. The reach of the Eagle Society extended everywhere. He had to hide in the biggest crowd. During the journey, he decided to examine the bronze tablet he had taken from the obsidian box. The text on the tablet was a mixture of Latin, Etruscan, and symbols from other ancient languages he didn't know. The tablet was clearly a map showing the location of the Aetherium. The map pointed to one of the most distant and dangerous corners of the empire: Hadrian Wall in northern Britannia, a border, an obstacle, ... Double quotes. Aurelius thought, the place Rome built to separate the world from the barbarians. It cannot be a coincidence that the power is hidden at the last boundary of the empire. I must go there. Fausta Aelia and the shadow of Rome. When he reached Rome, he hid himself among the crowds. The city shone with Trajan's glory. But Aurelius now saw the corruption beneath this splendor. His only trustworthy refuge in the city was an old friend, Fausta Aelia. Fausta was 28, an intelligent, knowledgeable woman interested in politics and philosophy, noble but conscientious. Her father was one of Trajan's advisors, so Fausta had access to information about the inner workings of the imperial court and the Senate. Aurelius carefully sought refuge in Fausta's house, and told her everything: the obsidian box, the gate in Volterra, Lucius's death, and the Shadow Eyes. Fausta listened to Aurelius in horror. The Shadow Eyes, I had only heard whispers about them. Oculi Umbrae. My father even thought they were just exaggerated Senate gossip, but they are a structure older than the empire itself, the arm of the Eagle Society. Fausta explained the structure of the Eagle Society to Aurelius. This society was composed of the most powerful families, the wealthiest merchants, and the highest-ranking officers of the empire. Their goal was to seize the Aetherium Potentia and spread the empire's power not just to Rome, but to the entire world. Their belief was in one world, one power. The new journey. Britannia, we must go to Hadrian's Wall, Aurelius said. The bronze tablet is the map of the power. The Eagle Society could get there before us. Fausta, despite the great danger, nodded with determination. You will not go alone, Aurelius. If this knowledge is the salvation of Rome, we must fight for a truth older than the empire itself. You are the heir of the serpent, and I am the mind of Rome. Blood and mind. ... Double. Quotes, using her own resources, Fausta arranged fake identities and a military escort document for Aurelius and herself. Aurelius would be a wealthy merchant, Marcus from Etruria, and Fausta would be his intelligent secretary. This disguise would allow them to move without attracting the attention of legionaries and officials. The journey would be a perilous adventure, spanning every corner of the empire, from Rome through Gaul and Germania to the very north of Britannia. Aurelius tightly wrapped the Obsidian Box and placed it in his backpack. He closed his eyes and remembered Lucius's last words. The only thing Rome needs is the truth. This was not just an adventure, but a mission that would rewrite the future of Rome. The peril of the roads and the eagle's treachery. The journey begins. Shadow Eyes, in pursuit Aurelius and Fausta, secretly left Rome through the city's crowded gates. They had only their horses, some gold, and most importantly, the Obsidian Box. Their journey would extend from Italy to Gaul, and then to the Germanic border on the Rhine River. In the first few days, their fake documents, arranged by Fausta, worked smoothly. Fausta was an intelligent and stubborn woman. She spoke Latin and Greek fluently, and played her merchant role perfectly. Aurelius, on the other hand, remained silent in business conversations, projecting a strong and protective figure. However, about 2 weeks after leaving Rome, in a small town near the Rhine River in southern Gaul, they saw the first signs. While resting at an inn, they noticed 2 men watching them carefully from a distance. The men were dressed like ordinary merchants, but their movements reflected a soldier's discipline. Aurelius recognized that they resembled the men who killed Lucius. The Shadow Eyes were dangerous, not only with their swords, but also with their ability to stay in the shadows. They found us, Aurelius whispered to Fausta. They have networks all over Rome. We must leave here immediately. The suspicion of an imperial officer. Their escape was interrupted by a greater danger at the Germanic border. They were stopped for document inspection at a small Roman outpost on the Rhine River. The commander of the outpost, Centurion Titus Vulcanus, was a stout and grumpy man. Centurion Titus grew suspicious of Fausta's elegant demeanor and Aurelius's tense silence. He particularly frowned when he saw an Etruscan statuette, which Aurelius carried in his leather satchel. This is Etruscan work, the centurion said, returning the statuette to Aurelius. The remnants of Rome's enemies. Why would a Roman merchant carry such things? Fausta immediately intervened. Centurion, my husband, pointing to Aurelius, collects ancient objects. It is a hobby of his. We are carrying these sculptures to sell to wealthy buyers in Gaul. Etruscan artifacts are quite popular among the barbarians. Centurion Titus did not look satisfied. His eyes narrowed. Is that so? Merchants usually carry gold and silk. You carry ancient relics. Swear to me, in the name of the Eagle Society, that the purpose of your journey is to serve the Empire. Aurelius and Fausta froze. The words Eagle Society came out of the centurion's mouth at an unexpected moment. This meant that the centurion was not just a Roman officer, but also a member of the society. Aurelius suppressed his inner rage. I swear to serve the Empire, he said, his voice firm. Centurion Titus released them, but Aurelius knew that the Eagle Society now knew their trail. Titus would send a message to his comrades in Britannia and the mystery beyond the wall, the mists of Britannia and the legion's shadow. Aurelius and Fausta, wary and watchful fugitives from Gaul and Germania, arrived in the province of When they landed, instead of the Roman south's brilliance, they were met by the cold, damp mists and wet forests of the north. This was one of the toughest and least controllable regions of the Roman Empire. After a journey of many months, they finally reached their destination, the colossal stone-woven shadow of Hadrian's Wall. built by Emperor Hadrian in 122 AD. This line of defense separated the Roman world from the fierce, free tribes of the north, the Caledonians. The wall was not just a border. It was the embodiment of Rome's power and arrogance. Aurelius felt that this immense structure was a symbol of an empire built on lies. Fausta immediately realized that Centurion Titus's warning had worked. The legionaries' movements were more strained, and their interrogations more detailed. They approached Vindolanda Fort, one of the most important and strategic points on the wall. This was a significant headquarters of the Legio VI Victrix, the victorious 6th Legion, one of the strongest legions stationed in Britannia after the Legio IX Hispana. The fort commander, Legatus Aemilius Brutus, was a tall, sharp-featured man with a glint of hidden ambition in his eyes. He invited Aurelius and Fausta to his office. Merchant Marcus Legatus. Aemilius addressed "It is surprising for you to come to this cold corner of Britannia from such a distant place. What goods are so important that they prompted this difficult journey?" Fausta immediately stepped in, repeating the Etruscan artifact story she had told Centurion Titus. However, Legatus Aemilius's gaze shifted from Fausta's face to Aurelius's shoulders. "Interesting," the Legatus murmured. "A message sent from Rome told us of two people searching for a secret object, an Obsidian Box. We are told that it contains knowledge vital to the security of the Empire." The Legatus had clearly revealed himself as one of the highest-ranking members of the Eagle Society. His eyes were fixed on Aurelius's satchel. "Surrender it?" Legatus Aemilius said, his voice now threatening. "This knowledge is the right of the Eagle Society. The world must be ruled by order, not chaos." The riddle of the bronze tablet solved, Aurelius had to decide quickly. They were in the middle of a fort full of armed legionaries. He feigned surrender. He slowly opened his satchel, but before taking out the box, he pulled out the bronze tablet he had previously shown Fausta. "Is this the knowledge?" Aurelius asked, throwing the bronze tablet onto the Legatus's desk. The Legatus was surprised when he saw the tablet. The ancient symbols on it resembled the society codes he knew. As Legatus Aemilius began to examine the tablet, Fausta put a plan into action. Fausta grabbed the heavy bronze ink set on the Legatus's desk and hurled it onto the maps on the table. In the confusion and shock, Aurelius and Fausta dashed for the door. Taking advantage of the chaos inside the fort, they reached their horses and bolted out through the northern gate of the wall. As they fled, Aurelius saw the tablet in Legatus Aemilius's hand that had bought them just enough time to escape. Riding away from the shadow of the wall, Aurelius explained to Fausta why he had given the bronze tablet to the Legat. The bronze tablet only had the first part of the map. Aurelius said breathlessly, "To find the real location, we needed to solve the last part." Lucius's diary mentioned a final riddle that would be opened through blood and mind. Aurelius took out the broken sword hilt from the Obsidian Box. The lion's head sculpture on the hilt must be the final part of the tablet. Fausta urged them to stop in a dense forested area. The two young people immediately tried to fit the hilt onto the bronze tablet. The hilt fit exactly into the empty space in the middle of the tablet, and a new inscription appeared. "Aetherium Potentia sleeps beneath the shadow of the three stones, where the last fire of the Iron Age burned, beyond the eagle's reach." Aurelius looked at the map. The geographical lines on the tablet pointed exactly 100 miles north of Hadrian's Wall. "The three stones," Fausta said. "That must be an ancient Neolithic monument, considered sacred by the barbarian tribes deep in Caledonia. Rome's legions can never reach there. And the last fire of the Iron Age," Aurelius added. "These are the traces of a civilization older and more primitive than the Etruscans. This power is older than Rome itself. Infiltration into Caledonia and the perilous encounter. Their route was now clear. The heart of Caledonia. This was a land of misty hills and deep swamps, where the laws, gods, and even the language of Rome lost their meaning." Aurelius and Fausta crossed beyond the wall, knowing that the Shadow Eyes, dressed as legionaries, were following them. Their first days north of Hadrian's Wall were a nightmare. The cold, constant rain, and the feeling of danger lurking in every bush. Food and water were hard to find. On the third day, as they advanced deep into the forest, they were suddenly surrounded. Those who captured them were neither Roman legionaries nor Shadow Eyes. They were the fierce, tattooed warriors of the north, the Caledonians. The warriors were in primitive clothes made of leather and furs. Their faces were covered with blue paint woad. Their spears were aimed at Aurelius and Fausta. Their tribal chief was Morvaran, a colossal, red-haired, and intimidating figure. Morvaran roared at Aurelius and Fausta in a guttural language they did not understand. "We are merchants who come in peace," Fausta shouted in Roman Latin. A look of contempt appeared on Morvaran's face. "The merchants of Rome always come with iron and blood. Do you also have swords?" The Caledonian warriors captured Aurelius and Fausta. They were led to the tribal camp, made of stone huts deep in the wilderness. In captivity, Aurelius was thankful that he still had the Obsidian Box in his satchel. He had escaped the Eagle Society, but now he was at the mercy of the tribes. Morvaran's anger and suspicion could be their end. However, an idea flashed in Aurelius's mind. The Serpent Society and the Etruscans had a secret network of knowledge, not only in Italy, but throughout ancient Europe. Perhaps these tribes carried a legacy of ancient wisdom that Rome had forgotten. This would not just be an escape, but an attempt to forge an alliance for survival.